Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome to Bhagavad Gita Class 8. We'll be starting the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, beginning with chapter 7. And it's really exciting. I think we can get through the whole chapter today, we'll see. And we'll start with some kirtan.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me make sure Robin's on mute. So we'll start with our opening prayers, this invocation, this honoring of all of our teachers, the acharyas, saintly beings who have walked this path of yoga before us, bestowing the light of knowledge upon us, removing the darkness of ignorance. Position on it. Take a deep breath in.
Hare Krishna.
Turn the musician sound off.
Haribo. Obeisances to the assembled devotees. All right. How's everybody? Good. Looking good. You can all hear us okay? Fantastic. All right. That's fine. We're charged up.
Okay.
So, chapter 7. Start with a little review of chapter 6. What was chapter 6 about? Anything?
Fixing the mind.
Fixing the mind. Yes. There was a lot about fixing the mind. If the mind is your friend, or the mind is your greatest friend or your greatest enemy. That was there. Fixing it. There were some tips through suitable practice and detachment, Krishna said. Anything else stand out from chapter 6?
The 3 P's.
The 3 P's. What were the 3 P's?
Posture, pronunciation, and prayer.
Posture, prayer, pronunciation, and prayer. Yes. Yeah, the primary form of connection is through Nam Sankirtan, hearing and chanting Krishna's names. And so I gave a little bit about the 3 P's, just the simple practicality of how to connect better. Krishna says suitable practice and detachment. The most suitable practice is hearing and chanting, and especially his names. So posture, prayer, and pronunciation, definitely. Yeah. Anything else stand out?
You can lessen suffering by regulating your play, your work, your eating, your sleeping.
Yeah, you can decrease your suffering, mitigate your suffering by regulating your eating, your sleeping, your work, and your play. Got to have some. Can't have too much. Can't have too little. Yeah. That's a yogic lifestyle. Spiritual lifestyle management. Yeah. Excellent, excellent.
Whatever spiritual advancement you make is eternally yours.
Whatever spiritual advancement you make is eternally yours. Yeah, Arjuna has a doubt. What if I don't make it all the way in this life? And so Krishna, Krishna, he brings out this point that your advancement is eternal, and you'll find yourself automatically attracted to the same principles again, and you'll pick up where you left off. Excellent. Anything else? Yeah. The only other thing I'll say is that at the end of the chapter, he says, of all the yogis, the one who is thinking of me always in their heart and rendering service with love, they're the best of yogis. But this bhakti yoga is the most powerful process of connection, according to Krishna himself. I think that we had someone in the chat on WhatsApp wanted to share a story. Who was that again?
It was Leslie, but she last minute couldn't come.
Okay, so Leslie's watching online later, but feel free to share that story in the WhatsApp chat. She had a story about chapter 6 Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
Always down for stories. Okay, so we'll get into chapter 7. Unless there's anything else, we're open for that. Going once, twice, 3 times. Haribol. All right, chapter 7. Chapter 7 is called Knowledge of the Absolute. Vigyan Yoga. Vigyan Yoga, the yoga of Vigyan. Vigyan means realized knowledge. Knowledge through experience. Gyan means that was the name of the 4th chapter, Gyan Yoga, connection through knowledge. Vigyan Yoga means practical, realized knowledge, experienced. This is deeper knowledge. Knowledge is more intimate. In fact, these middle 6 chapters are considered more intimate. Just like we gave the example, they're like the middle part of a sandwich. That's where the most of the flavor is. That's where you're holding the sandwich by the bread, but the really juicy bits are on the inside. These 6 chapters are very, very important, and they start with this Vigyan Yoga, knowledge of the absolute. Krishna starts talking about himself more as a person. We've heard about how to connect through your work, and also some things about meditation and some generalized spiritual knowledge. You're not your body, these things like that. We'll hear more and more detailed knowledge in this chapter in the next 5. So starting from chapter 7, text 1, share this verse right here. Right away, Krishna gives us this principle of hearing. Hearing is the principle. This is how we connect. Shri Bhagavan uvacha maya saktimana partha yogam yunjan madashrayah asangshayam samagram mam gitak nyasasi tat shurnu. Shurnu, this last word means to hear, just hear. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, now hear, O son of Pritha, how, by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. This chapter, Krishna is revealing how you can, through the yoga process, know him in full. As will come out in this chapter and in other places, there are different levels of liberation. There is, well, let's go to the next verse and you'll see. The second verse, Krishna says of the chapter, well, it's actually the third verse, in perfect senses. The third verse, Manushanang sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanang kaschin mang veti tattvataha. Krishna says, out of many thousands of people, one may endeavor for perfection. And of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So, of the general run of people, well, first of all living entities in the planet, how many can actually attend the Bhagavad Gita class? How many can inquire about their actual nature, the nature of their self apart from the body and designations and their meals and so forth? Really just the humans. Pretty much just the humans. So that's a special consideration. And then of all the humans, most people don't actively aspire for spiritual knowledge. It was true 5,000 years ago when Krishna said this. It's even more true now because we live in an even more distracted culture. And that's there's always kind of a ratio that at any given time, a lot of people are just kind of going with the flow. But then he says something interesting. He says, of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So this realm of spiritual perfection is like greater, greatest. They're all within the absolute realm that one can know they're not their body. They can recognize their identity as a spiritual being beyond the comings and goings. For them, they're liberated. They're at this level of perfection, as Krishna uses. Siddha is the word in Sanskrit. Siddhanam, of all the perfected beings. And yet, that doesn't necessarily mean that one understands the source in all detail. One understands that source in its personal feature. And one understands Krishna as he is, as a person. One can understand that I'm just passing through. This life is coming and going. I'm not this body. And they can be truly liberated on that platform and not yet actually know their own relationship with the divine personally. Who is the divine? How do I connect with them? What are their features? So Krishna began this chapter by saying, you can know me in full. This is what he's offering. He's offering more intimate knowledge, free from doubt, he says. So he starts in the beginning. He starts from the fundamentals. Verse 4 through 6, he talks about what makes up the world. What are the different energies of his? Verse 4, this is really important stuff. 7:4. Bhumir apo nilovayo kam mano buddhir evacha ahankar etiyam me bhinna prakrutirashtata. He says, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Altogether, these 8 constitute my separated material energies, right? So Krishna is going to describe here the difference between his material and his spiritual energies. So that which you can smell, taste, touch, feel, see, hear, these are material energies. Also the subtle material energies, the mind is actually considered, the material mind is considered a material energy. Just like we can see the mind, we can, not with our eyes, we can experience it. I can't see your mind, and you can't see my mind, but depending on my activities, you can see the effects of my mind. And we can, if we slow down a little bit, perceive our own mind as separate than ourselves. And so it's an energy. And so intelligence is also a function of Krishna's material energy. It's a function of our subtle body. And then our conception of ourself. If that conception of ourself is anything but, I'm actually just a part and parcel of the Supreme. If it's that, oh, I'm Shamyapras of such and such age, I am a man or woman. I belong to this country. These conceptions, these are also material. So Krishna is putting this all into one category with so many divisions. Now, we could break that all down into like endless categories of biology, chemistry, and physics, and psychology, and all that is within the category of Krishna's material energy. Material energy. Now, what does that leave us? It leaves us a spiritual energy. What could that possibly comprise? Verse 5. 7:5. Apariyamatastvanyam prakriting vitti me param jiva bhutam habaho yayedam dharyate jagat. Besides all these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mine, which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. So you have matter in all of its forms, and you have the living entity. And they're in the same world, but they're not the same thing. They're coming from the same source, notably. Krishna is saying, matter is my energy. The soul, the spiritual being, that is also my energy. However, he's putting them into two different categories. So because he does that, we should do that too. We're meant to see that there's actually connection, that we come from the same source, inanimate and animate, that which is, you can say, the external, and that which is the living being. They're coming from the same source, but they're different. Just like we can see that with ourselves, there is the inanimate objects of the body, right? We know that because when we're sleeping, they kind of get less animated. And if I leave my body, not if, when, when I leave my body, the body becomes, well, what it always was, just a vessel, but with no occupant. It's a car without a driver. So you have the inanimate and that which animates it, right? And the word animate comes from Latin, animus, meaning soul. That's basically what we're talking about, the soul and that which they occupy. And so the carpet may have little stuff in it, have bacteria, but basically it's inanimate. This hat's inanimate. My clothes are inanimate. My body is also external energy. And there is something within this body temporarily right now, and that is a different kind of energy that is capable of different things that this wool sweater can't do. Right? So Krishna is breaking that down, the difference for us. It sounds really simple and straightforward and almost like too simple, but it's actually quite profound. And he's doing it not for the first time for us, to help us understand that these are different, and also connecting them that they both come from him. Right? So in the 6th verse, he says, all created beings have their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I'm both the origin and the dissolution, meaning I am the source of it, and I'm that to which it goes to. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I think it's from the Christian tradition that when you're at a funeral, you're saying goodbye to somebody who's left, and so we're saying that the body has come and it's going to go. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. All the material and spiritual energy have their origin and ending in a source. Krishna is claiming himself as that source, notably. And in a very beautiful analogy, he says in the 7th verse, Matav paratarang nanya kinchirasti dhananjaya mai sarvidam prodang sutre manigana eva. There is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread, right? You have pearl necklace. You have all these beautiful jewels. You have an infinitely long thread with all kinds of incredible jewels on it. You'll never see the thread, right? If it's strung really nicely, it's invisible. It looks like these things are just suspended there. It's in the background. So Krishna is like that in this world. He's in the background, not parading down the street. Hey, everybody, I'm Lord and Master. This is a place for us to play out our thing. And so he's the thread upon which all the pearls are strung. The sun, the moon, all inanimate objects, and all the living entities within the world. He's the support of all of them, the foundation for all of them, both the conscious and the non-conscious, the spiritual energy and the material energy. Both of them come from him. Right? Now, having said that, Krishna having said this, that he's the source of the conscious and that which is not capable of consciousness, the material energy, he starts to give some ways that we can see him and experience him in the world. He'll do more of this in the 10th chapter. In that chapter, he lists several ways we can experience him. He does it here too, verses 7.8 through about 11. Yeah, 11. So in 8, he says, I'm the taste of water. I'm going to experience that right now. Rasoham apsukante, I'm the taste of water. Refreshing. And any liquid you drink is basically water derivative, right? I'm the taste. He's at taste. So Srila Prabhupada famously, he talked about this example. He said, Krishna is so close to us, and yet he's like the thread, so he's in the background. But if we choose to turn our attention to him, that makes all of the difference. He said, even if you are a drunk and your day-to-day experience is drinking wine, what is wine but, water mixed with like a bunch of stuff and some alcohol, the flammable liquid. So not advisable to drink things you can set on fire. Not the best for you. But let's say that's your thing. Srila Prabhupada, what does he say? He says, you can actually realize Krishna if every day when you're drinking your intoxicating beverage, you think, this taste is him. This taste is that source. This is a meditation. This is a very practical meditation. And he gives this to us as a process. Krishna does, that you can experience me when you're tasting water. I am the taste in water. He says, I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether. I am the ability in man. When you see somebody who has some ability, right? Let's say you appreciate Kelly's kirtan. Let's say you like this class. Oh, Shami Prabhupada, he gives nice classes. Let's say you go to, where are we? We're in Vermont. So let's go to New England. You go to the Boston Red Sox and you see somebody hits like 4 home runs in a game or something, right? Oh, that's fantastic, you think. Where did that come from, right? There is I am the ability in people, he says that. I am granting this. I'm the source of that genius, that strength, that knowledge, that beauty, that capacity. So these are meditations. So he's giving that. I'm the fragrance of the earth. I'm the heat and fire. I'm the life of all that lives. I'm the penance of all those who perform penance. I'm the original seed of all existence. I'm the intelligence of the intelligent and the prowess of all powerful people. So he goes on like this. And then he summarizes this meditation in verse 12. He says that know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion, or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of nature, for they, on the contrary, are within me. So this is where he first introduces this idea of the modes of nature. And these 3 modes of nature, goodness, passion, ignorance, in Sanskrit, that's sattva, goodness, rajas, passion, and tamas, ignorance. They're described more elaborately in the 14th chapter. The entire chapter is dedicated to the 3 modes of nature. I'll give a little bit of a rundown on them here because Krishna mentions them, and they are so practical. So what Krishna is saying is that everything in the world is affected by these 3 modalities and mixtures of these 3. Just like times of day, right? You wake up, if you ever wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, the whole city is asleep. Whatever city you're in, guaranteed. Most of the city's asleep. The birds haven't come out and started singing yet. Not really, not even in the middle of the summer. Maybe some of them. Wake up at 4, definitely not. Right? Before the sunrise. Everything is very peaceful. Very, very conducive for meditation, introspection. You want to do some writing? Good time for that. You want to do some prayer? Excellent time for that. What happens in midday? Things go towards midday, 11, 12, 1. Good luck trying to meditate then, right? All the birds are chirping. All the animals are going. All the merchants are selling. People are buying. Hawkers are hawking. Cars are honking. Planes are flying. The whole world is buzzing. Rajas, activity, frenetic, energy, come and go, right? It's a good time for getting stuff done. It's a good time for moving your body, moving the energy, managing people, making some money, going to work, doing some push-ups, whatever your thing is, right? Make things happen. Even if your thing is knowledge, that's a good time for like collecting knowledge. Read some books, like make some notes, What happens in the evening? Things wind down, slow down, people get tired, it gets darker, you can't see as much. People start to sleep. That's when intoxication becomes more attractive. That's when distraction becomes more attractive. You want to wind down, you watch a show, you go to bed. This is natural thing that happens when the sun goes down. You're like, oh, wow, the show's over. So just go to sleep then, you know? This amazing orb of fire is gone. You're like, oh, it's just time to go to bed, right? So things wind down, tamas, ignorance, darkness. So that's the three modes in a nutshell in the times of day. You can see it in music, right? Look at like some kinds of music are very elevating. They're very clarifying. They are conducive for meditation. They're conducive for like deeper states of thinking. Some are very like energetic. They have raw, intense passion, right? Some are like actually very dark, very degrading. How about food? Some food is very, very pacifying, soothing. You like it, it's nurturing for you, but it also doesn't create like a lot of smell or a problem digesting it afterwards. It's like really simple and good for your health. Some foods have lots of bold flavor. They can really disturb your stomach if you have too much, a lot of salt, a lot of spice, right? And some are like, degrading actually, or if you can imagine, even if they've gone bad, food that started to go a little bit, like, is this good? Ever ask somebody, is this still good? Then you have it and you're just like, little bit, not so good, right? It's degrading. It's intoxicating, it's distracting, it's not good for your health. There's these different mixtures of that in food and everything. So Krishna is saying that all states of being are manifested by my energy, whether they're goodness, passion, ignorance, or generally some combination. Nothing's in one mode of nature only. There's always some combination. Something is predominant, but there's some mixture. But he's saying, in one sense, I'm everything, but I'm independent of all these things. I'm not being affected by these modes of nature because they're coming from me. They reside in me. They're within me. They're coming from me. Then he says in the 13th verse,
Eileen has her hand up.
Eileen has her hand up. Go ahead, Eileen.
So can you, it's maybe say it in a different way. So I always thought that when you think about like orgiastic or tamasic activities, like that wasn't necessarily, and I guess I frame it a little differently. Like it wasn't coming from Krishna. It was actually like us moving away from Krishna, that it wasn't like created by him. Like he's created like sattvic lifestyle. And like, as we move away from that, we enter the other modes. So the idea of him, being like manifesting those other modes of nature is kind of a different, like I'm trying to reconcile that in my brain.
Right. It's an interesting point because Krishna is the source of all forms of choices, including those that distract from him. He's actually he's an enabler. Krishna's an enabler. But he's really smart about it. He's giving everyone capacity to make decisions. And there are consequences to those decisions. Because that's what relationship is. You have to have choice. The whole Bhagavad Gita is aiming at relationship. Arjuna is deepening his relationship with Krishna. I know from, so many comments from people taking this course and studying along, we're all experiencing a deepening of our relationship with Krishna. And relationship requires choice. There has to be alternatives. You can choose to turn to him, or you can choose not to. You can choose a lifestyle that's supportive of spiritual practice, or you can choose something that's really unsupportive. Or generally, you can choose something that's like a mixture, and you can keep making more and more progressive choices. But the reality is that in the big playpen that is the material world, all the options, all the toys, the sand in the sandbox is provided from the same source, right? There's no competition to that. It's not coming from somewhere else, even the bad choices. But the consequence of choosing badly, you can say choosing the lower kinds of activities, is that you do become forgetful. That's very important to remember, that everything comes from that source, but it matters what I do. As I've said again and again, choices matter, because the world is laid out in a way that you can choose more selfishly, with more short-term thinking, more external thinking, and your senses become duller, your mind becomes less bright, you become less clear, you see yourself less accurately, you forget more. And you can choose in the other way, and you can become more clear and more aware and more awake. So that's always the case. As long as we're here in this world, we always have some choice. It's not that we sign on the dotted line and say, okay, I've made my choice, Krishna, I surrender. I'm going to chant your name every day. I'm going to, let's say I'm going to like not eat like meat or whatever. I'm going to like live like this, do like this, not do these other things. I'm signing the dotted line and initialing and underlining it. And here's my contract, and we are done. Does the world listen? No, it just keeps coming.
Maya's knocking on the door.
Yeah, it just keeps coming. It's like those moving walkways in the airport. If you're not moving, if you're standing still, you're not standing still, because the world has its own momentum, which is also a kind of mercy, because we can't just chill and be like, yeah, I've already done this. I get it. I'm fine. I'm perfect. It keeps us going. It's a little fire on the stove that keeps the thing cooking. So you have to keep moving in the direction you want to move. You got to move or you'll be moved by some other force outside yourself. And that includes the forces of ignorance, of distraction, and so forth. But all of them are being provided from that source, interestingly.
So kind of like to Eileen's question, it's all the three modes of material energy, they all come from Krishna.
Yeah.
But if we live in a more sattvic way, it's going to be more easeful for us to reconnect to Krishna.
Yeah. Living in a more sattvic way, having a sattvic lifestyle allows us to reconnect more. Well, it's more conducive to spiritual life. In fact, as a bit of an aside, it's even more conducive for enjoying more in the world. Why? Consider this. Let's say I want to, let's say my goal in life is to enjoy food as much as possible. Make it real easy, you know? Like I'm like a pig, you know? Like pigs think like that, right? Actually, pigs are pretty smart animals. I'm like a badger. I'm like a duck, right? I want to eat as much as possible in this life. So if I roll out of bed and I just start eating, seems like I won, right? What if I decide to go to school and make some money? Like become qualified to get a job, make some money. I can eat more. I can eat better if I have some long range thinking. So being out of the lower modes actually prevents a lot of trouble. It seems like a really good idea. There's a part of my brain that's like, you know what? You should just stay in bed all day. This is so comfortable. You should just sleep or eat or just this or just that. It's like even if that was my only goal in life, actually you can meet that better by having a sattvic lifestyle. You will have better quality sleep if you are in the mode of goodness. You know, doesn't matter how much you sleep. If you are disturbed, your mind is disturbed. What kind of sleep is that? Or what if you're so out of your mind, you sleep for like 18 hours, but you're unconscious? It's not really sleep. It's like practically non-existence. You're like comatose. It's not good. It's not refreshing. Actually, the sattvic lifestyle is better for everything. It's better for enjoying relationships more. It's better for appreciating beauty more. It's better for knowledge. You'll be more beautiful. But most of all, it helps you to connect to Krishna more. Yeah, living in a sattvic way in the mode of goodness is better for your meditation, your prayer, your bhakti. But you can do what you like. That's the whole point of Bhagavad Gita. Do what you like. But for now, at least, we're seeing that Krishna is saying you have these choices, but they're coming from me. Okay?
Did that answer her question?
Yeah. Yeah, she's happy with that. Okay, good.
Okay.
Moving on, text 13. Deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes. I'm above the modes and inexhaustible. Inexhaustible means he's not worn down by them. He doesn't have a beginning or an end. He's spiritual. He's above them, not affected. And deluded by these comings and goings of the three modes of nature. Morning, day, night, you know? The modes come and go. People of all bodies, human and non-human, they go out through their lives and they forget and they become deluded by that. So he says in the 14th verse something very, very powerful. This is one of the most powerful verses in Bhagavad Gita. But you're probably not interested, right? No?
Please.
Please, she says.
Please. So may I have some more?
Okay, they want to know. All right. I guess I'm obligated to share this verse. 7:14. Daivi Hyesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mam eva ye prapadyante, maya me tang tarantite. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. Another way of translating it is it's impossible to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So this verse has everything. It has what's up in the world, what to do about it, and where you'll go if you do, or what happens, what's the result. What is up is in the first sentence. These three modes of nature, this divine energy of mine, the Sanskrit word is daivi, that's where divine comes from, is impossible to overcome. Because in the previous verse it said, the whole world is deluded by it, and they forget me, they don't know me. They don't see me, who am above the modes. You can't just overcome nature. You can't overcome karma, time, distraction, the mind, the forces of the material energy. You can't do that on your own. They're impossible to overcome. That's what's what. That's the status quo. Mam ivaye prapadyante. Prapadyante means to surrender. Prapadya. To submit oneself. That's the process. That's pretty much a synonym for the process of bhakti. You know? Notably, the process of bhakti is not the process of taking, acquiring, of making it yours. There's a lot of knowledge in Bhagavad Gita, but we're not approaching it academically exactly, because academically means actually the world is mine for the taking. And if I study hard enough, if I work hard enough, it's mine. All the resources are there for whoever's there can plant their flag on it first, it's theirs. That is not bhakti. Bhakti is there's so much knowledge, there's so much beauty, there's so much truth, and I'm asking to receive it. I'm submitting. I'm asking, what can I do to qualify myself to receive it? This is bhakti. It's a softer path. It's the receptive path. It's a science of reception. Prapadya, surrender. Those who surrender unto me, what does he say? Maya me tang terantite. They cross over this maya. By my mercy, they cross over. I allow them to cross over. Taranti. Taranti is the same root as the tra in mantra. Man means the mind. Tra means to deliver or to cross over. That which allows the mind to cross over, the mantra. They cross over. Those who surrender, they cross over the otherwise insurmountable material energy. This is bhakti. This is bhakti. Okay, this is kind of the halfway point of the chapter. Anything so far before we continue? Crossover to what? Yes, crossover to what? Very good. Crossover to Krishna. Crossover to knowledge of him, to connection of him, to experiencing a relationship with him. That comes going to come out more and more. Good question. Anything else before we move on? I think you'll want to know more about that. Crossover to what? Nadia was asking about this last week. What is beyond? Yeah, the next few chapters are talking about this. Okay, so 15th verse, Krishna talks about those who don't surrender. They're not interested in this process of bhakti. They're not interested in opening their heart. He gives 4 categories of persons who do that, what their motivations are. Those who are grossly foolish, who are the lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and to partake of the atheistic nature of demons. This word demon is asura in Sanskrit. Asura means non-godly. It's translated as the demon. Don't think of some like with horns and a pitchfork, like devilish. Not exactly like that. It's not like that. It's not a cartoon, not a Bugs Bunny cartoon. But you find this word asura, demoniac, demon. Those who, at least for some time, temporarily at this point, are not interested in the divine, interested in the supreme, interested in what is beyond, what is spiritual. And so these divisions of these 4 different kinds of reasons or ideologies or conditioning that would result in somebody not being interested spiritually, they're given in a rather long purport. You can read there for more information if you want. I'll give one example of what Krishna is talking about. Maya pahrita jnana, the verse says, those whose knowledge is taken away by illusion. One kind of non-surrendered person is somebody who has a lot of knowledge. They actually are very intelligent, and they have a great deal of knowledge of the world. They're materially very bright and knowledgeable. However, they're distracted by that, and their knowledge does not allow them, it puts a ceiling on how high they can go, because for them, they identify strongly with their knowledge. You know, maybe they have a very high IQ, maybe they have some standing in academia, maybe they've written some books, maybe they're just the most smartest person in their group of peers, friends. But for them, not intelligence is not a disqualification. But for them, that mentality is that they identify strongly with that. And so if they can't figure it out, it's not real. If they haven't figured it out yet, it doesn't exist. There's a certain amount of arrogance there. And despite their intelligence, despite what knowledge they have a ceiling they can't penetrate, because they don't actually approach reality in a surrendered way. They don't ask, what can I do? If there is a supreme person, what would he want from me to be qualified to see him? They'll say, like, well, why can't I see him right now with my eyes? Right? And I mean, I can't even see past this drywall. I can't see into the next room with these eyes. These eyes are so limited. Well, I must qualify myself, right? So if one doesn't try to qualify themselves, they're very proud of their learning. That's a certain kind of disqualified, non-surrendered mentality. Verse 16, 4 different reasons why people do surrender. And so everybody who is practicing bhakti has some combination of these. This is why they came to bhakti. This is why they started practicing. The distressed, you know, those who are suffering, they turn to God. They turn to spirituality. They ask why, right? Distress. Those who are desiring wealth, they want more. But they don't just want more and think they're going to figure it out themselves how to get more. They turn, they ask for help. This is also a spiritual, it's motivated. It's still wanting some material thing, but it's spiritual because it's turned into the divine. And I say, well, you know, you can help me meet my goals. Those who are inquisitive, so curiosity, this is a reason. This is a reason to ask spiritual questions, because we're actually inquisitive. We want to know, well, what is the deal? You know, maybe you're not suffering so much. Maybe you're not like materially greedy or motivated or lacking, but you just want to know, like, what is the deal? Like, is there a God? Is there spirituality? Can I understand that? Can I connect to that? And finally, those who are searching for knowledge of the absolute, those who are actually deliberately, not just curious intellectually, but they need to have that for themselves. They need to know. They need to connect more. And so we see in these things, there's different degrees of purity of purpose, but all of them are actually, Krishna says, they're all considered magnanimous is the word he uses. They're great souls. Anybody who approaches him, who approaches spiritual knowledge, is considered a great soul. But he says, of those who are in full knowledge and are always engaged in devotional service, they're the best. He says, all these devotees, those who are looking for wealth and they turn to spirituality for that, or they're distressed, they just want to get free from distress, or they're curious, or those who are legitimately wanting to connect with the divine. They're all magnanimous souls, verse 18. But that person who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, they are sure to attain me, the highest and most perfect goal. The highest and most perfect goal. So in verse 19, he says, Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudeva sarvam iti sa mahatma sudurlabhaha. What does that mean? Bahunam janmanam, after many births and deaths. One who is actually in knowledge, somebody who actually has knowledge, surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and of everything that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So there's this reference to the gradual process again, potentially over many lifetimes, of accumulating knowledge, even spiritual knowledge. So by this accumulation of knowledge, we can become expert in this world, in some field, we can become materially qualified. Eventually we realize that, you know, there's more to life. Just like I give that example of, I met somebody who moved to America from the Middle East, and they met all their material goals, and they said, okay, so what's next? I've met all my goals. What else is there to life? Just asking that question means that they've reached a certain level of knowledge. the fact that they want something more, something different, something deeper than what the world can offer them in terms of some currency of the world. And after cultivating knowledge that I'm not my body, that I'm a non-material spiritual entity, eventually one comes to the understanding that there is a source of both myself and all conscious living entities and of inanimate matter. And one approaches that source, begins to surrender. Now, the word surrender is a very interesting word. Now, surrender is actually like a big negative. The way we know surrender means like you lost a war. Okay, white flag, I give up, it's over. You run up the score on me, 17-0 in the baseball game, I surrender. Like, let's just call it, right? That's material surrender. That's not what Krishna is talking about. He wouldn't be glorifying it. He wouldn't be saying this is such a good thing after so many births. One who's successful surrenders. They give up. They throw in the towel. They consider their life a waste. They decide, I give up entirely. But remember Arjuna at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. So qualified, so powerful. Not just such a great warrior, such spiritual knowledge. But he couldn't solve his problem. He couldn't prevent that war from happening. He couldn't be happy. No matter what happened, it was going to devastate him. And he turned to Krishna and he said, I can't figure this out. Help me. That humble, sincere admission of, not that I have no power, but I don't have enough power to figure this out myself, right? It's the same thing you find in recovery. It's like, surrender to a higher power. That's how you get over it. That's how you get over chemical and physical and mental dependence. You have to actually get help. You can't get help if you don't think you have a problem. You have to admit you have a problem, and you have to take help from a higher power, right? However you understand that higher power. And not just in addiction and recovery, in life. Krishna is saying, those who take help from me, they're surrendering it to me. That's the perfection of knowledge. That there's somebody there who can help me. There's a supreme person. Even if I don't understand that or I have doubts about that, I'm just turning towards it. I'm saying, please reveal yourself. I'm ready to do what's necessary to approach you. This is surrender. Hearing is surrender. He says at the beginning of the chapter, you can know me in full, free from doubt, just hear. This is also surrender. Submissive, honest hearing. So this is relatable for all of us.
Can I just say something about what you were just saying about the recovery too? It's that in admitting that I am powerless, but I'm not helpless.
Yes.
Right. So that there's actually a greater power and control, but I have then the power of choice.
Right. Admitting I'm powerless, but not helpless.
Yeah.
I can choose to turn my attention this way to the spiritual.
Right.
Now he continues. He talks about how some people can. Basically, he's building more and more of a case that he's actually the source of everything. In verse 20, he says, those whose intelligence has been stolen by material desires surrender into demigods. Demigod is like, is found in the Vedic tradition. You can understand more. There are empowered living entities who take care of certain things. Just like you have a sun planet, right? There's a big sun. It's bright. It's putting out so much energy. It's an astronomical place. In the Vedic cosmology, the view of the universe, there's also an empowered living entity who is overseeing the release of all that heat and light. They're a demigod of the sun. Are they God? No, they're godly. You know, the sun is a pretty amazing thing. But the demigod of the sun is just another empowered living entity. It's considered like in a family. In a family, you'll have children. If it's a big family, you'll have older children and younger children. What happens? The older children help raise the younger children. They have more responsibility. They have more privilege. They can go out. They can borrow the car, right? They can also change the diapers. So from the perspective of the 3-year-old, the 15-year-old is like God, you know? They can do so many amazing things. They're like, you ever had like an older sibling you just like idolize because they're so much older than you? They're amazing. It's like that. You can think in the Christian theology like angels. They're still part of the creation. They're not God. The Bible is clear about that. But higher orders of living entities. And in the Vedic tradition, some people worship these demigods because they'll say, this one can get me a nice wife. This one can get me a beautiful husband. This one can get me money. This one is good for longer life, right? Like that. Worship Ganesha, Shiva, like this. Krishna says, those who are just, their intelligence is diluted because they just want some things. they'll just approach some empowered living entity and they'll try to do some business deal with them. Like, please give me this, give me that, give me my daily bread, give me a Mercedes Benz, give me this, right? So pretty much in 2023, North America, modern context, there's not much of an understanding or idea of demigods. But you can think of it like if you have a job, and in your job, you have a boss who's the most wealthy person you know, right? They make 8 figures or whatever. And you could think, well, I want to just be like that. I want to get a lot of money. I want their job. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to like learn everything I can from them and suck up to them and run around and do errands for them, practically worship the ground they walk on, read all their books, do what they do, listen to their podcasts, and I'm going to be like them. I'm going to follow in those footsteps. They're God for you, right? They're your little demigod because they're your whoever. I don't know any economic powerhouses, but they are there, right? Some CEO of some company. And Krishna is saying, you can do that. You get some limited thing. But verse 21, I am in everyone's heart as a super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make their faith steady so they can devote themselves to that particular deity. Endowed with such a faith, they endeavor to worship a particular demigod and obtain their desires. But in actuality, all these benefits are bestowed by me alone. Whatever you get from anybody in this world, whether they're human or non-human, empowered living entity, you're getting because it's coming from their supreme source. He's basically saying, don't worship the creation. Turn to the creator. Where did it all come from? Don't just find somebody who's smarter than you and think, how can I be smart like them? Or prettier than you? How can I be beautiful like them? How can I be wealthy like them and get what they have? Try to understand it comes from a supreme source and turn there. Because verse 23 says, the fruits, the results you get from this kind of approaching other limited beings who have more than you, those results are limited and they're temporary. They have a beginning and an end. But if you turn your attention to me, you can come to me. So the 24th verse, Krishna says, unintelligent people who don't know me perfectly think that I, Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. Kind of a complicated statement. What is he actually saying? He's saying that sometimes people read Bhagavad Gita and they think, oh yeah, Krishna, that's like the universe, temporarily assuming a body. And actually, like, the Supreme doesn't have any personality. The Supreme actually has no distinguishing features at all, but it just kind of like coalesced into this form. And that's what we know as Krishna. But actually, it's the great big beyond, the white light, the bright nothing. And Krishna's saying, not so much. It's not a very bright idea. He's saying that actually they don't know my real self. They don't know my higher nature. They say I've assumed this personality. So he's been talking about how he's the source of everything, like pearls on a thread. He's that thread. He's been talking about if you realize that there's a supreme source, or you want to approach that and you surrender there, you try to approach in humility, submission, that's the perfection of knowledge. Now he's going out of his way to say that source is personal. It's personal. It's not just a great big nothing, not just emptiness. It's not even just a great white light. It's not just even a sense of peace. It's a person, an all-attractive person, right? Now consider all the people you know, including yourself. Nobody reveals themselves completely to everybody. There's always some qualification. We don't just give ourselves away, right? A distinguished lady, a gentleman, they don't just give themselves away to everybody. They're like, they want to see, is this person are they for real? Are they going to take me for granted? Are they going to honor me? Are they a real friend? Are they faithful? Right? Just like Krishna says at the beginning of the 4th chapter, I'm sharing this knowledge to you because you're not envious, because you're my devotee. So similarly, he says here, verse 25, I'm never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I'm covered by my internal potency, and therefore they don't know that I'm unborn and infallible. He's not obliged to reveal himself in his personal feature. He's not obliged to do that. One can study the world in a mood of trying to make it theirs, and they can try to conquer matter with their intelligence, try to figure it out, try to go to different places and conquer it, plant your flag, make it yours, get all the resources. That's not bhakti, and that will never qualify one to understand the Supreme Person. Just like if somebody points a gun to me and says, "Be my friend, you have to love me," they can't actually buy that. They can buy a facsimile. You can't actually make anybody do something like that. You can only encourage them to give their heart to you. You can only show why it's a good idea, why they can trust you, right? That's what we're doing. That's what bhakti is, right? It's not just I want him to show up. It's we're showing him why he should trust us, right? And so, because that's what the bhakti process is allowing us access to, this inner feature, this personal feature. What is Krishna like? If he's a person, what kind of person would he be? That must be an incredibly attractive person, such an astounding personality. What do they do, right? I'm not going to reveal what makes my heart tick, what I'm all about, just to anybody, right? So why would Krishna? So in this section, he's saying, some people misunderstand me. They think I'm not a person. They think I've assumed this personality temporarily. He's basically saying, don't put on your Sherlock Holmes magnifying glass and try to figure me out, right? Try to approach in this submissive way. Ask and receive. And then he talks about some of the qualifications for this. It says in the 27th verse, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered from dualities arising from desire and hate. It's like you're born, you have some likes, you have some dislikes. I like this color, I don't like that color. I prefer summer, I don't like winter, or vice versa. You have all these things. You're born into this world of likes and dislikes, all the dualities. And you have your momentum from your previous life, right? I gave the example before that you can have identical twins, and identical twins have the same genetic structure. They should have the same desires. They don't. Right from birth, they have different personalities. They're different people. They have different trajectories. Krishna is saying, yeah, you're born with a trajectory. You're born with all these conditions. But, verse 28, persons who have acted piously in previous lives and in this life, for them, their sinful actions, again, sinful means that which separates you from the divine. Those reactions, they're eradicated. They're freed from the dualities of delusion. And they engage themselves in my service with determination. Remember, the 6th chapter, he just said, having made some progress, you find yourself naturally attracted to it again. The yogic principles, the principles of connection, of yoga, of bhakti, ultimately. And he says, by those pious, by those spiritual activities, and by being a good person, previously and in this life, they qualify themselves to be more determined in approaching me, right? Then he concludes the chapter. Those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of the material manifestation, of the demigods, and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. That leads into our next chapter, which talks entirely about the time of death and the process of death, dying, and how you can know him at that time. Hare Krishna. Thank you. We made it through chapter 7. Haribol. All right. Let's take any comments, any questions. Really great stuff here. So many powerful verses. Anything that stood out, you can ask questions. If not, you can ask them later. But we'll take them now. Whatever you want to point out that was interesting, confusing, controversial, beautiful.
Yeah, I find this chapter really dense, and I don't know why, but I feel like from the start, I had trouble kind of connecting the dots and sort of trying to summarize what you just said in the last hour. So if you were to summarize just in a couple of sentences this chapter, like what would be the key sort of takeaways? Because again, I can't wrap my head around it. I don't know why,
Sure.
but
No
one's a
problem.
tough one.
I would say that this chapter is Krishna saying he is the source of matter, he is the source of spirit, and that knowing him is only possible through the surrendering process. That allows us to cross over all material conditions and come to him. That ultimately he's a person, that he's the source of all other empowered beings, including demigods or your boss who's rich or this or that, all opulences, and that he's not obliged to reveal himself in his personal feature to anybody. But he does reveal himself to those who approach him. That's pretty much a summary, the main points. You can break that down. There's more about what matter is, 7.4, what spirit is, 7.5, pearls on a thread, 7.7, all the different ways you can see him in the world, 7.8 through 12, surrender, 7.14, those who don't surrender, 7.15, those who do, et cetera, et cetera. There's all kinds of so much detail. It's a lot. It's a lot. But those are the kind of bullet points.
I have another question for you.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you listen to this, and this is from like my little mind, and I know, like, I know that, but I kind of sit there and say, okay, I do believe that Krishna is the source of everything, and I do believe that, like, we are here, to be in service to him, and so that definition of knowledge, though, is probably not the right definition of knowledge, right? Because if it were that simple, then I wouldn't be like, overeating over here, or I would be chanting instead of watching Netflix, right? So when we use the word knowledge, can you expand on, like, because I think, yeah, I know, like, I am all in, Krishna, like, I love you and I know you, but yet I am still, like, so beaten down by the material world. It's like, it's not that easy.
Yeah, it's a process. And so that's kind of there in the distinction between gyan and vigyan that I gave at the beginning, knowledge and realized knowledge. I can tell you, you can tell your child something is true, and they can, like, because they trust you and you have a good relationship with them, and like they look up to you and they know that you know a lot of stuff. You can tell them something and they can believe you, and that's knowledge. And if somebody asks them, like, what's the capital of Colombia, they'll say, oh, Bogota. I learned that from my daddy. They're right, it is Bogota. They could win a bunch of money on Jeopardy with that. But they can also take a plane and go to Bogota, and they can see what it's like. He can talk to you about Hawaii, or you can take a plane and go, come back with sand in your pockets.
For seconds and
And you can experience it yourself. You can be there on the beach. You can smell it. I've been in Hawaii. It's real. It's a real place. And you can experience. And so Krishna is also like that. You can know about him theoretically, and you can experience him. So we talked in previous classes about the relationship between theory and practice. It's important to hear and build up the construct of how things work, right? That can help us in our day-to-day. But especially, it's like you take that, then you start applying in manageable bites. You start digesting into your life what Krishna is saying. You start applying that in your life. You start chanting. You start offering your food. You start living the philosophy a little more. You hear Bhagavad Gita. You ask these kinds of questions. You do more and more and more, and you get some experience back. And that informs what you actually see. What you see has better resolution now. It's like a screen. The colors get brighter. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You fill in a corner. Now you can see, oh, there's something happening over here, right? It's not just like, I know it's supposed to look like this when I'm done. You actually figure it out piece by piece. So yeah, that's what we're in. That's where you're at. You're talking about developing a practice, developing a life where you're applying some of the principles that you're hearing about. It's not just theoretical, because if it were just theoretical, we could just say, yeah, I'm done. I believe. I could just sign up on the dotted line and it's over. But that's not a very deep relationship, right? That's like an ideological belonging to a group. That's like an ism. Krishna is not here to propose some ism for us. He's not giving us a contract. You can be a true believer. You're part of the chosen people. He's actually offering, like, realizing him. Just like in your relationships with people the closest to you, you want to see them show up for you. You want to see them reciprocate with you. You see the relationship thicken and deepen and sweeten over time. And you get to know their heart more and more, right? So similarly, that's what's happened. That's what is meant to happen for us. And it happens bit by bit through our japa, through our service, through our association of devotees, through our study, and humble approach to, Bhagavad Gita, for example. But it's a good thing that you're noticing that you're not done yet. I haven't figured it out yet. Maybe you're never going to figure it out. There's a lot more to it. If that weren't true, what would be the point of, Krishna saying he's the source of everything? If he was so mundane and simple, you could just I took a class with this guy for 12 weeks and we study Bhagavad Gita. I know everything about God now. I know everything about everything. It's you can't even understand everything about tapestries in 12 weeks, right? It's not so cheap. So yeah, that's good. That's a very good attitude to have, that there's so much more for me to do. There's so much room for improvement. I'm so distracted. I wish I had more of this. I wish I were more focused. I wish I had more time, or I was more sincere, or I had less distraction. Great. Good for you for noticing that. Take that to your prayer. Take that to your japa. Take that to your teachers. Take that and grow. Also periodically spend some time looking back at how far you've come. Do that too. Don't just get lost in the treadmill. I got to go. I need more. Also look backwards. Wow, look at the progress I've made. Look at how I am free from the modes of nature in these ways. Look at how I am more aware. I have more power. I have more agency. I have better association. I have more choices. That's also true. It's also true.
I love what you said earlier about surrender and how you defined it as humble submission of power. And then you said, this is the perfection of knowledge. Right? Understanding, or taking that point of surrender. And so that's also to what Eileen is saying, I have this knowledge and I know Krishna, I believe Krishna to be God, but my actions don't reflect that. So this perfection of knowledge is actually humbly submitting that I'm not all powerful.
Yeah. Kind of running your head against that wall of trying to make it happen by yourself is meant to get you to a place where you realize I can't do it by myself, and I'm gonna stop trying to do it by myself. I'm not gonna stop doing my bit. I'm not gonna shirk my responsibility. I'm not gonna at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna's not okay, cool. You can fight this battle. I'm gonna sit here and just chill. Eat chips. No, he does his bit. But the point is, the devotee, that point of surrender is where they realize I need help. Eileen, you're saying I want what were you saying? I want to not be forgetting you or be swept away or whatever by the modes of nature. Okay, and I can't do that on my own. So the devotional response to that is Krishna, help me. Because only with your help can I actually have a focused mind in my japa practice. Can I expand my japa practice, and can I still meet my social and familial and financial responsibilities and my health and all these things? I can only juggle these balls with your help. I need your empowerment, right?
He's the ability in man.
He's the ability in man and woman and child. Great. More? Anything else?
Right in the chat.
Any other reflections? Nothing in chat yet.
Any comments in the room? Observing it.
It's a lot.
I love in 7:17, you actually didn't say this part of the verse, but I love this part of the verse that he says, when he said with these, the one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best. This part's the part I love, for I am very dear to him and he is very dear to me.
Yeah, verse 17.
And that part is when I read that verse, sometimes that verse will just make me cry because it's like, it's such an important reminder that we all really, really need. Little cat cab over here. Well, I just think it's such an important reminder of what we all need, like what you're talking about, like when we can actually be surrendering, when we actually can be in this genuine place of like humbly like offering what we have, that it's so reciprocal. And it's like that is just such a beautiful, beautiful testament. And I
Yeah.
really want to say that.
I just want to check, did everybody hear that? Or should I repeat it? You heard it? Great, perfect, awesome. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada, he was fond of saying, you take one step toward Krishna, he'll take 10 steps, 100 steps towards you. You know, his steps are bigger than our steps. It's more powerful than we are. But there is this reciprocal thing. There is this relationship. There is this way in which, you know, when he sees that we're sincere and we're trying, it doesn't matter if we fall down in that attempt. That's not the qualification. That's not what makes somebody fall in love with you or choose you. It's the sincerity. It's the fact that they're going out of their way and they care about you. They want to know, like, what do you want? How can I please you? This is the mood of devotion. This is the mood that makes Krishna open up as he is. Not just that there is, you know, spirit and matter. That's not personal yet. Where is spirit and matter coming from? Right? That's more personal. Who is that person? What do they do? What do they look like? So there's he's saying that for those who are in full knowledge and are always engaged in pure devotional service, they're the best. For I am very dear to them. And they are very dear to me. Great. Anything else before we wrap it up for tonight? Okay. All right. So let's read this. This week we'll read the 7th chapter. I forgot to mention last week that we'd read the 6th. I hope you did that. Not read both. Why not? 7th chapter is only 30 verses. It's kind of a short chapter. But there's a lot there, as you've experienced and shared. Read those verses. You can read any purports you want. They all have a lot of wisdom. Again, I recommend everyone at some point read the whole Bhagavad Gita with purports. It doesn't take that long. There's a lot of elaboration and powerful and useful clarification around all these points there. Prabhupada says it better than I can. And if you have, so do that. Read the 7th chapter. And in the next 48 hours, give some reflection. Everybody, I'd like everyone to give at least one reflection, whether you're tuning into this live or on YouTube. If you listen to this on YouTube later in the week, cool, you can give a reflection then. You can give a reflection a week from now. That's okay, there's no time limit. As soon as you have it, give a reflection on one thing that stood out, at least, that's interesting. Maybe some of you are like sitting with a question of you're not convinced, or you're whatever, you're awestruck, you're confused, you think it's memorable, or you're taking it away. Just do that to help create more flow, and we'll churn that in the WhatsApp group. All right? All right, bravo, everyone. We got through chapter 7. And we can take more questions on the WhatsApp group too. So keep them coming. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, ki jai. Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Bhagavad Gita group ki jai. Ancha kalpatarubhyascha kripasindhubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So all of you, ki jai. Yeah.
Shami Prastas ki jai.
And special thanks to special guest Johnny in Southern Vermont. Happy to see you. Always happy to have you there. We've had you. This has been 3 classes, I think we've had you.
Yeah.
Those are our best 3 classes.
Jai.
Thank you for the recognition.
What is that?
Very well spoken. What a much better way to learn religion. And this is a very, other books, the Bible, the Quran, not as clear, certainly not as clear as you've described it. So thank you.
Thank you. It's my privilege. Yeah, Bhagavad Gita is very special. it's been appreciated by people from all kinds of traditions. Yeah, the detail and clarity is something that they found also. Yeah, Thoreau and Einstein and now you.
Johnny Skinner.
Yeah.
Just the legends.
See you next week, everyone. See you on WhatsApp. Hare Krishna.
Stop the recording.